of December and early January have been a little slow. I mean that in terms of my life outside of photography and this channel, and also within those things. To put it quite frankly, I don't do as much shooting nowadays as I used to. And sure, part of that has to do with the weather outside and the lack of sunlight a lot of times. But overall, I just kind of haven't had the urge to go out and shoot. I just feel like I'm at a stage in my photography career where I'm trying to shoot with a little bit more intention. Like, for instance, yesterday I went to Governor's Island and I went there with the purpose of shooting 36 unique photos on Governor's Island, kind of as a challenge to myself. And you'll end up seeing a lot of those photos in next month's recap, I'm sure. But I find that having little projects like that are helping to fuel me creatively, especially considering that I live in New York City and I've lived here for 4.5 years now, and maybe 5 years. And I'm at a point where I feel like I've explored every square inch of this entire city, when in reality I've merely scratched the surface. But anyway, back to this month's recap. Back in November, I think, my friend Alex offered to let me borrow his pride and joy, his favorite camera, his Mamiya RB67, which I have right here. So Alex, if you're out there watching, just know that she's in good hands. Super generous of Alex, and I'm super grateful because I've had a ton of fun shooting with this thing. Now, to be fair, the first few rolls that I put through this thing were not great. It took me some time to get my bearings with it, and this month I feel that I finally did. I'm at the point where I'm pretty satisfied with just about every photo that I'm taking with this thing. Not necessarily over the moon, but satisfied. So with all that in mind, my 5 favorite photos from this month were all taken on the Mamiya RB67 with Kodak Gold 200. And without further ado, let's start talking about them, starting with this. So normally they say to save the best for last, but honestly, I wanted to talk about this one so much that I threw it in here in the beginning. It is my favorite of the month for sure. First thing to note is the colors. The sun was setting and I remember I was in a big hurry to find something to photograph before the sun completely went down, and it was pretty serendipitous that I stumbled on these red barns and the silos and this crazy pink purple sky. I don't know how it was making that color. This photo made me a believer in the power of Kodak Gold, because the colors are vibrant and beautiful. I wish I had taken a video of what this looked like so that you all could see the accuracy that this photo captured the scene that was in front of me. That's honestly sometimes one of the more magical things about photography or film photography, the idea that when you're in a certain space, the thing that you're looking at has a certain ethereal nature to it, something that you think cannot be translated to a photograph. Sometimes people emphasize and seek out exact replication in the photos that they take, like something should look in the photo how it looked in real life. And this is a photo that not only looks the same, but feels the same. Like when I see this, I feel like I'm transported back to that roadside where I was looking up at this beautiful sky and these amazing barns in the silo. Yeah, I love this photo. It's a great way to start off the year. I'm super proud of it. And yeah, we're going to move on. Up next is a photo of my father. This was actually taken on Christmas Day. I think last year I had a photo recap with a photo of my dad in it, and in that I mentioned how important it is to me to be taking photos of my family whenever I go visit them up in Connecticut. Being in New York, far from my family, can be tough sometimes, so I always try to cherish the moments when I'm with them. If I compare this photo to that other one, which was taken on Fuji Superia in my Nikon FG, it's cool to see the progression and the quality differences in these. Not only is the negative bigger, but the intentionality is more apparent in this newer one. The detail in my father's face, the nice fall off of focus in the background just make this such a nice portrait to me. I do kind of wish I maybe had him look at the lens, but him looking all stoic off to the side, it also works. All right, up next we have a photo of a church. So I took this the same day as that first photo when I was on my way up to Harley's mom's house, and this was a church that I passed by many times, but it was sort of off in the distance, and on this trip, I decided to go scope it out. It was tucked away like a beacon of light in a dark, wooded area. Now, I'm not very religious, but The symbolism of the bright white church with its bright red door being surrounded by green and gray is definitely giving some like lighthouse illusions, like the light is right over there, sort of. You understand what I'm saying. I actually took two photos of this church in 120 and a couple also in 35. I just had to make sure that I got all of it covered. I think I like this one the best because of the dimensionality of the building, and I do like the rock wall in the foreground. If you followed this channel in the past, you know that I have a strong affinity for photographing churches. I feel like I could put together a whole photo book of just photos of churches that I've photographed over the years. I grew up going to church. My grandfather was a priest, and the church was a pretty big part of my childhood, which might help explain it. I also just think that the artistry of the architecture and all of its accoutrement is typically really beautiful, and in many cases has this invisible, profound nature to it. I think I try to be attracted to the things we pass by without a second thought and try to offer that second thought, offer some sort of recognition of them. I don't think I'm alone in that. I think a lot of photographers would say that they subscribe to that mindset. Like, this is a beautiful church. I have no doubt about that. Also, the red door is just striking. I cannot not photograph it. If you didn't know, a lot of churches actually have red doors, and apparently it's because it represents a color that denotes a place of sanctuary, that offer physical safety and spiritual refuge from outside evils. Also, it's meant to symbolize the blood of Christ, according to some people. I guess I just find the symbolism of churches, along with their architecture and design, to be worthy of photographing, and gosh darn it, I'm going to keep doing it. All right, up next is my cat Kirby. You all know by now that I love photographing my cats. They're some of the easiest animals to photograph because they have this propensity to just lounge around in beams of sunlight, and because of that, it's easier to get a decent photo of them in a camera like the RB67, which can be unwieldy and difficult to get snapshot-style photos out of, just mainly because of its bulky nature and the inversion of the waist-level viewfinder. It's just difficult to take well-composed, deliberate images on the fly. But when I saw her here, pretty content and not moving, I stealthily set up the camera on the tripod, got her attention, and snapped away. The photo also has a bit of balanced composition to it in my eyes. There's the right amount of positive and negative space. Also, the mirror is helping draw your eyes right down to Kirby's head, sort of as some leading lines. That wasn't intentional. My main intention was getting the photo before she decided to get up and walk away. I know I've beaten this point like a dead horse, but I'm finally getting comfortable with the concept of documenting my life through film photos. This is an example of documentation merging with artistry that I really strive for in a lot of my work. There's intentionality to the image while also being an accurate documentation of my cat. I think when those two forces can blend together seamlessly, that's when I know I should keep doing what I'm doing, and that's ultimately when I feel the most fulfilled. Okay, last but not least, we have a photo of an abandoned house. So this is a house that I also drive by all the time when I'm going to Harley's mom's house in upstate New York. This was the morning after Christmas Day, and up in the mountains there was this heavy fog, and I knew it was the perfect opportunity to take some photos of this house. Here are some of the other ones that I took of this house. Now, I chose this one for my top 5 because I feel that there's a bit more going on a dynamic level. I really like these branches creeping in the top left and right, helping to create this frame where the house can exist in. Also, considering this house is abandoned, these branches help to establish the story of unease, of looming threat if you were to go and approach. Those other two photos don't really have that effect. They seem a bit more inviting, but this one seems cautionary. I just think it's fascinating that you can photograph the same subject from two different angles or two different sides and evoke polar opposite emotions or feelings out of it. I will say, if I have one critique, it's that there is quite a great deal of detail lost in these images, and I think that the heavy fog might have something to do with it. The fog was thick and heavy all around. If I zoom in, we really don't see much detail in the house. It could be the lens that I was shooting with or the particular settings. From memory, I was shooting these at f16 at 1/60th of a second. I could be wrong about that. Anyway, I was a little shocked when I saw these scans and I didn't get the detail or the sharpness that I guess I had anticipated. I think in general, my expectations when shooting 120 were that I would be getting a significant increase in detail and sharpness in my images. Overall, that hasn't been the case, and I don't know whether it's due to user error when taking the photos or my lab's scanning process or this particular camera lens setup. I do actually think that that could be the answer. Sorry, Alex, again, if you're watching. Because when I compare these photos to some of the ones I took on the Bronica SQ-AI last year, I felt that the detail in those was a bit stronger, but I could be wrong about that. That could just be my nostalgia goggles looking back at that beautiful, beautiful camera. All right, that's all I have to say about the photos for now. I want to wrap this thing up. There's two things that I want to do this year that I want all of you to help hold me to. Number one, buy my own medium format camera. As much as I love borrowing stuff from friends, I want to own my own medium format camera. And I'm looking for something in the vein of the Rolleiflex or a similar sort of like TLR equivalent. And number two, I'm working on a home scanning setup. There's a few things that I still need to actually get it going. I need an adapter to adapt the lens onto my camera. I need a film holder. That's pretty much it. I'm almost ready to go. I just need those two things. Hopefully I'll be able to get that up and running before the summer or by the summer so that during the summer I could spend some time scanning some of my negatives. When that is set up, I'm hearing from a lot of folks that home scanning can actually be very beneficial, and that you'll see a difference between your home scans and your lab scans. I've seen some YouTubers on here who show examples of their home scans versus their lab scans, and sometimes the differences could be night and day. So when that time comes, I want to scan these negatives for myself and see if I can get some different results. That's going to be a whole ongoing saga, and honestly, we're going to get to that later in the year. Anyway, that's going to do it for my January recap in 2024, the first recap of 2024. I'm very excited for the year to come. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified for when new videos are released. You can go to my print shop and maybe consider buying a print. I don't know, maybe. I think they're pretty good. They're very excellent quality from thedarkroom.com. You can help support the channel that way. You could also help support the channel by becoming a member. You can find that join button. If you click on my page, find that join button, become a member for a few bucks a month. You might get some interesting perks. I'm still working on that part, but you can really help this channel thrive and grow and help me take more photos into the future. Yeah, I think we got that covered. January was a success. Stick around through the end of the video if you want to see some of the photos that didn't make it onto my top 5. There's some other awesome photos that I really thought should have gone on here, but didn't quite make the cut. So stick around for that, and I will see you all next time.